Morning, and the very first webinar for Darwin Innovation Hub this year. I'm Dante St. James, coming live from Melbourne this morning. So jetting around this Christmas and New Year's break, but it is for the Darwin Innovation Hub, and a really, really timely topic too, of tuning your SEO for AI searches. So it's all about what's different when it comes to people searching for you through AI tools than searching through, say, a regular Google search. Although Google these days has got AI summaries at the top of everything now, so it's pretty much all the same kind of thing. So how do we make this work for you? Well, there is a bit of a playbook for it, and I've got a guide for you at the end that I'm going to give you the link to, that I'll send through to all of you who registered. So that'll be through your email address you registered through Eventbrite with, and also a bunch of tips that are going to get you not just understanding how it's different to Google search, but the actionable tips to get going. I put this into practice with a couple of my training sides of the business, and man, it really did make a difference late last year. And I've had all sorts of, inquiries from places that I didn't think I would ever, like an inquiry from Saudi Arabia, for example, that ended up being not only legitimate, but a really good ongoing paid consultation. So it does sort of work for you. Just depends on a few things you need to do to make sure it works the best possible way for you. We won't be long this morning, really quick one, because I know you've got to get back to family and all sorts of things. And it's, while it might be a weekday, it's kind of in that weird position, as we're not quite all back to work, but some of us are. So AI and traditional Google SEO kind of sit very differently in different ways. You've got the traditional SEO world that sits very much focused on key words, or more correctly, key phrases that people are likely to be entering into their search boxes in Google, usually based around a problem they have or something they want to overcome, a product they want to buy, or a service they want to access. It generally relies on a more corporate or formal tone. So very much based upon very specific things that you do in categories. So rather than saying a chippy, it would definitely be a carpenter. That sort of formality. It's not really in largely around human kind of speech. It's more around, more like a library. If you're going for a library, you're looking for a certain category. It's also a lot of technical optimization, page speed and making sure there's structure to the page and all that. And then also this link building priority, which is all about getting other people to link in to you, to your pages, so that you look more authoritative. That's changed a lot when it comes to the AI for SEO. Now it's a lot more about conversational language, because people like myself go into AI. I often talk to it. I speak with my voice to AI rather than typing it in. A lot of people still type in, but when it comes to being on phones or even being on desktops now, a lot of it's just spoken into it, and they might be complicated, very specific questions that are answered, or very specific instructions that are given to an AI tool, rather than just a couple of words there. Post just typed in with our fingers. And it also requires something more of a 7th grade reading level, rather than, now this is interesting, rather than the 5th grade reading level that we had before. With traditional SEO, there was the assumption that you have to have everything in a 5th grade reading level. So what happened is that super specific terms weren't as well treated by traditional SEO, because they would tend to get smushed into much bigger categories that were much easier for a younger reader, or perhaps a reader with less of a command of English to be able to handle. This time, though, it's gone up a level, because the natural language processing, particularly when it comes to the input of voice into these systems, is far better. So a natural human tone, therefore, is way easier for it to understand than ever before. Whereas before, very formal tone, very specific words and phrases. Now it's very much, you can ramble on for a minute and it kind of gets what you're looking for, and really, can pull out the key terms that it needs. And it has a lot more to do with the context. This make a real bit of a froggy throat this morning over the keywords. So rather than just going, these are the words I'm looking for, give me the answer with those words, it's about the context you're searching in, as you tend to be a little bit more explanatory in AI. AI has kind of trained us to be very prompt aware, rather than just simply a phrase or a few words. We're used to explaining more of the context of what we're looking for. So instead of going, plumber in Darwin. I'm looking for a plumber in Darwin who also has to be a gas fitter because I need to get the gas hot water dealt with because it's just not playing. It's not playing the way it should be. And I've got to get some plumbing too. So I've got to get some pipes redone to get that second bathroom in. It's probably going to be about a 3-day job. I'm in Malak and probably needs to be someone who's nearby because they might need to run backwards and forwards from their office a fair bit. Now that is a lot more context than what you would get if you were just typing something into Google. So this applies for not just just for Google AI. This applies for ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, any of those are now that are connected to the internet that act not just as AI processing tools, but AI search engines as well. And really, really good in these areas is that, your ChatGPTs, your Google Geminis, and your specifically Perplexity, which is a very, very good search tool. So the secret sauce that makes AI tools recommend your specific services and products and business is where you really know your customer and you know how to produce content on your website or somewhere else that is very, very clear about who your services are for, their age, their location, the very specific problems that they tend to have and that they face daily. Going back to that plumber, we're not just talking about I'm looking for a plumber. It's like I'm looking for a very specific kind of plumber who deals with this very specific thing. And I'm a woman who lives by herself, so I need someone who I can feel comfortable with. Now, that is not something that traditional search would ever really deal with, but AI can, based upon the fact that it's not just bringing in what you've put on your page, it's also bringing in a lot of social proof. SEO did this before, like Google search did a bit of this before, but now it's dragging in way more social proof from way more places, including Reddit, Whirlpool forums, a lot of recommendation engines, right down to yellow pages listings. So all that sort of stuff is feeding into what your specifics are, not just the big major category you happen to be in. And also when you speak their language, which is very conversational, very jargon-free, having content on your pages that resonates with a very specific person, that can be very helpful too, because it places their context into your context, or more correctly, your context into theirs. What I'm meaning here is if you had a page that was just all about these are the services I provide, and you have no context for specific people, but you'd just be another page for another plumber or another copywriter or another coach or another consultant. But when there's a page on your website that is written specifically for a very, very, very specific kind of person, say, for instance, the plumber that more Darwin women choose to work with, and it shows some of the social proof, some of the testimonials, some of the things people have said about you in other places that makes it trustworthy for that. That could be something that's really good for someone searching for that, for a very specific thing, not just a plumber, but a plumber who works really well with women. That's really a terrible example. Probably what I should need to go is a plumber who speaks Chinese, Mandarin, a plumber who speaks Malayalam. Just pick your language. That kind of stuff is really important because it could be a family who's a migrant family that's not comfortable dealing with English in the very fine aspects of negotiating rates and all that. But if they're dealing with someone who speaks that language, say Hindi, Malayalam, Thai, Mandarin, just pick any language, then add that as a feature, not just as I am a plumber. I'm a plumber who also speaks this language. Also, highlight what matters to the person that you're trying to serve, not your big list of services. Have a page. You can have your general services page, but have a few, I call them ghost pages, right? These pages are not linked elsewhere on your website. They're a page that sits separately. So places like WordPress or even Squarespace or Wix, you can create pages that Google picks up and AI picks up because it can see them, but that just going to your website, you cannot navigate to them unless you know exactly where that page is. You can't navigate through menus or links. It's not linked elsewhere in your site. And I call them ghost pages. Some people call them landing pages. I call them ghost pages because they're not there, but they're kind of not. They can be written to serve specific lists of your features and benefits that solve very specific problems. So you can say plumbing services ideal for high-rise apartments. Plumbing service ideal for elevated split level homes, plumbing for for multi-site caravan parks. That way you've got something so specific to those people that's highlighting something that matters to them. When they go in there, and be it Google or something like that, has a really good idea of who that person is, that they happen to have a business in, I don't know, the rural area, then they want to know that someone can serve them in the rural area. Now, this is all stuff which was correct for for SEO in the first place too. It's even more correct now, specifically this super specific stuff, because when we go in there, remember when I did that example of what it's like to speak to AI, we have been trained by AI to prompt, not just to enter a question. We prompt quite heavily with lots of context and lots of information, because that's what we've learned gets a better result out of AI. That is the same for AI search as well. So the way that you dominate, say, for instance, local search, particularly if you're looking at, you're mainly serving local customers, service location posts or dedicated pages for each service in every relevant suburb or part of the city or city that you deal with is ultimately important. Again, if you're that plumber and you're serving Darwin, Palmerston, but you'll also go down the track and deal with the rural area, and you'll deal with Catherine, and you'll even do trips to Alice Springs or into Kununurra, make that known. Don't just say, we are serving these places and just listen on one page. Make a page specifically for that location. Also, social proof. This is where you don't just include testimonials that people have given you, but you gather them from the different places where they've put them. When you've got local customers, particularly people who are in Catherine, and you're on a Catherine page on your website, that speaks volumes louder than it does if someone's from Darwin or Perth or Sydney or Melbourne. Now, I've seen a lot of web designers and particularly international students that have decided to become web designers and software developers and setting up their own little agencies in Darwin make this mistake by putting very fake ones on there. And of course, you can tell they're fake because they're so poorly written. And what they do, they don't get specific about the kind of thing that that person did for them. They're very much about great to work with, awesome, reliable, very, very much, descriptive of the kind of person they are rather than the work they did for them. Please don't make up testimonials, because we can kind of read through that. Everyone's got an internal BS detector that just goes all red flaggy when we see these inauthentic testimonials. Better still, get testimonials that have been on Google, that have been on Facebook, that have been on Reddit or anywhere where you got testimonials. Excuse me. And make sure that you actually show where they came from. So put a little Google logo under it or a little Facebook logo. Ultimately, though, the testimonials you share on your own pages are nowhere near as good as the testimonials that are already shared on other platforms about you. Case studies are a really good way of going around this if you do not have a lot of testimonials and recommendations and reviews. This is where you specifically describe something you did that took a customer from this to this. Now, this is where it gets super, super specific when you don't have just a page for that particular kind of service, but this was a service that had this problem that overcame it, and then hit this problem and then overcame it, and then had this particular quirk and overcame that. That is like having a specific page made for that one kind of person who is super high value, super highly motivated to employ someone to do this for them. But their problem is being that they cannot find anyone who has a listing of that specific issue they're looking for. So that case studies are really good for this. The good thing about case studies is, whilst it is helpful that they are real case studies that you have done that work before, they're just as effective when you use them. Oh, excuse me, but they're just as effective when you use them to describe the kind of work you could do. You may not have done that work before, but you've done work that's very similar to it. It describes very specific circumstances that you could be doing. And then there's a location keyword. This is where you're mentioning local neighborhoods, local landmarks, local terms. For instance, if you're talking about Alice Springs, using the word Central Australia, Red Centre would localize that for you. If you're talking about Darwin, you talk about the top end. If you're talking about Cairns, you talk about far North Queensland. If you're in Townsville, you talk about North Queensland. So getting very familiar with the local namings of things and making sure you do mention those as well. That positions you and gives that extra context. Now, I've touched on the idea of these testimonials, and what the internet says about you is now more important than ever. Whilst it was kind of semi-important with Google search, now we're stepping into this AI search era. We're now looking at these particular testimonials and things that people have said to you on things like your Google business reviews, Google business profiles, you have product review, True Local, Yellow Pages, having consistency as well, not just of the fact that you've got some recommendations there, but also making sure your listings are exactly the same. That creates a very, very strong case for this being a legit business. So making sure the name, the address, the phone number are all in the exact same format on your website, on your Google business profile, on your True Local profile if you've got one, on your Start Local profile if you've got one of those. Look, anywhere you go, it should be exactly the same everywhere. Same address, same phone number, same email address, and the same name exactly across all those places, including Facebook and Instagram. Community forums like Reddit. Reddit is one of the most indexed sites on ChatGPT. They've got a special deal with them to be indexed on them, but Whirlpool on Facebook groups also do index at certain points as well, if that's been allowed for. Local Facebook groups, not so much, but Whirlpool, absolutely. For services and technology and products and that, it's a very important source of information. Social mentions through your LinkedIn, Instagram, X, they're all very good too. X, whilst it doesn't index in Google so much, it does index into Grok, the AI that Elon Musk sort of made around X or Twitter. LinkedIn articles, LinkedIn profiles, they all do, and company pages all do index on Google and in other searches. So you really want to make sure you've got something in there. LinkedIn's quite good for if you're selling to other businesses, particularly. Instagram doesn't have a lot of information that's very visible, but Instagram does actually show things like videos and posts now on Google search. So anything that's in there that talks about, perhaps a testimonial, what people have said about you, or encouraging people to create content around you in Instagram can be really helpful as well. So your three content pillars for making sure you really make a go of this whole AI SEO thing, or AEO or GEO, it's also called generative and generative engine optimization. Just basically it's SEO for AI, right? The idea is we need to position you as the best fit for very specific situations and very specific customer needs, not just for I do this. And it's for everybody. It's about getting into that whole knowing who your customers are. You might have 4 or 5 ideal customer profiles or ideal customer avatars, depends on what language you're using there. I just call them my audiences. So my audiences are, firstly, in my case, they are solopreneurs, people who are one-person businesses, small business owners. My other audiences are career changers and then career starters. Under all those sort of areas for the different services I provide, those are my 4 best fit ideal customers. Now, I've got to make sure that I've created content across various places, mostly my website though, that fit that. So what content have I got out there? And I'm still building a lot of that stuff out. What content have I got out there that best fits them for the specific things they're looking for? It mentions what they're going through, it mentions the problems they're facing, and it mentions what my solutions happen to be for that. And then a really good idea, and I did this yesterday, is a comparison table, which is an honest, very brutal comparison of you versus your 3 to 5 top competitors. Now, in some areas, I absolutely killed them. In some areas, I'm well behind, and I know that. So that kind of analysis can often shock you into action when you see just how short you're falling against them. And by say a comparison, I say, look at how they have done this best fit. How have they optimized themselves for that particular customer or that particular need? And what have they done to be more present, more consistently on these platforms? It's a really good, very sometimes brutal, but often just enlightening way to see where you fall short and where your competitors are growing faster than you. And it's not about comparisonitis or looking in the rear vision mirror to see who's coming. It's just about saving your business, right? You want to make sure that you've got all the tools you can to make sure you're doing the best possible thing you can do for your customers to be their first choice every time. And then have a top reasons series. This is 5 to 10 compelling advantages for each service you offer. And what this is like, it can be 5 to 10 pages of content, and you can use, ChatGPT or Google Gemini or any of those services to help you write this out. But why would people choose you? What are the compelling reasons why someone should choose you? And think about who those customers are, those very specific customers. Why would a woman aged 25 to 39 choose to work with you? Why would a career changer who's looking to pivot from being someone who works for government and now wants to go off on their own, why would they work with you? And these top reasons are very powerful because, again, they speak to that very specific person you're trying to attract. Now, I want to get out of this mindset that says, oh, but everybody can be my customer. No, not everybody can be your customer. They're already a customer of someone else for everything else. So they've got to have a very specific reason that speaks to a very specific problem in their life or a very specific need in their life to want to change all their habits that they've had for a lifetime to come and start working with you. So the best fit briefs, their blog posts or their pages that position your business as the perfect solution for that customer scenario. So I'm reckoning using ChatGPT is great because you can brainstorm very common questions that people would ask. It also helps you produce answers in very simple conversational language. And as I said before, this is the difference between a SEO in the old school way we used to do it and SEO now with AI tools. Remember, we're going in with a lot more context when we go into a search now, whereas before it was just a few words and that was all we did. Real examples from your experience speak very, very loudly to your expertise. So make sure you do that and then end with clear next steps. We used to call these calls to action, but I'm going to say it's not really a call to action. It's just saying, what can someone do next? Doesn't have to be a call to action to call us, book us. It can be anything at all. So the best Melbourne plumber for heritage home renovations with council compliance requirements is exactly the kind of best fit brief we're talking about. Not only just going the best Melbourne plumber, we're going the best Melbourne plumber for this very specific thing. So in Darwin, it could be the best Darwin plumber for Grollo elevated home renovations with council compliance requirements. That way you're getting into something which is very common for very local experiences. Comparison tables are lists. This is what we're talking about, the comparison tables. Like, okay, here's our feature, here's our business, how we do it, here's what they do, here's what they do. And you're going things like, response time is really hard to do, but local focus could be great. Pricing, if you know it, if you can find that out, often that's a very hard thing to do because tradies particularly, but also sole traders and consultants, we tend to hide our pricing because we seem to think pricing will turn people off. I've got the attitude is that they're going to be turned off by something. And if they don't like your pricing, they're not going to magically like it just because you hit it. In fact, they're going to probably feel really pissed off because you hit all that information and hit it with them at the end. What are we trying to trick people into working with us? I think that's what a lot of sales stuff is. It's like, oh, we need to trick them into giving us money, but you don't actually have to trick people into working with you if you really are good at what you do. Be honest, be very balanced. Don't bash yourself about with this. Just make sure that the comparison tables, and these are comparison tables you're not just doing for yourself, these are comparison tables you can put on your website. This is really important because this is the kind of like structured data that AI does very well with. Your top reasons, there you go. What's unique to us? What measurable outcomes can you expect from us? Here's the social proof and the recommendations, reviews about us. Here's our pricing. Again, I'm very mixed about pricing. Sometimes I really want to hide it. Sometimes I want to show it. But as I said, if someone's going to be turned off by your pricing now, they're always going to be turned off by your pricing at some point. Local expertise, really important if you've got a local service. So the AI writing technique is really about that ideal customer. We've got banged on about that enough. That 7th grade reading level, very clear, very accessible, very approachable language, the kind of thing that the AI model prefer for their recommendations, because what they want to do is do the least amount of work they possibly can to convert what's on your website into the kind of language that someone wants to read in. That seventh grade reading level is the main line of context of conversational language that is used on all AI tools. Then write conversationally. Imagine explaining it to somebody over a coffee or explaining to a friend at a barbecue, right? Use contractions, not the do not. Use don't. That's the way people talk. Simple words, short sentences, and use Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or any of those to brainstorm the ideas about that. If you come up with something you really want to do, ask those tools to critique it in the context of AI SEO. That's what's going to help you do this, is to basically use these tools to critique you, and they'll help you do better. Now, by building your customer profile, I'm talking about your demographics. Where are they? How old are they? Is there an income level? Are they a family? Are they singles? Are they double income, no kids households? What are the problems that they have? These are all things that need to be really clear that are coming around, not just your main website, but I'm talking about those ghost pages more specifically. You don't have to be on your mainline website to say, oh, our ideal customers is people who own their own homes in the inner suburbs of between 35 and 55 with at least $150,000 a year worth of income. That's not something you want to do, because that's an alienating thing. What you want to do is have pages that include those demographics. You're not using those demographics to exclude people necessarily. Although you might want to as well, because you might want to say, well, look, I'm not looking for people in these specific suburbs because I don't serve them. But make sure you're very, very, very tight on who they are. Are they time poor? Do they need a service that's going to turn up on time? Do they need pricing up front? Are they doing quotes and they want to be able to quickly get that quote back? Do they value people who have been around a long time? And the goals are, do they want something fast? Do they want it done today? Do they want quality? Do they want, no hidden fees? Do they want something that's going to fix the problem over the long term, or just something which is going to be a band-aid fix for now until they can afford to do the big fix later? Get specific about this. Create content on your pages. And remember those ghost pages. That's the biggest thing I want you to take away today. You don't have to make visible web pages that are part of your menu structure on your website. These ghost pages can do marvelous things to create new presences for you, not just in AI SEO, but regular SEO too. Identify the suburbs that you work in, lists all the services you provide, create a matrix of the services and the locations. So have lots of different pages you're going to have that link those services to those pages. So have a page specifically for northern suburbs, for Palmerston, for rural area, for the inner suburbs, all that sort of thing. Have local testimonials that are real if you can find them. If you can't, then do case studies that explain the kind of work you could do. And then track and refine everything. If you find that some of those pages are performing really, really well, but some aren't, look at what's performing well and sort of replicate what's working well on those and bring those ideas over to those ones that don't perform so well. And then do a bit of a checklist before you publish. Is the reading at a 7th grade or below style? Does it sound like real conversation? Does it address a specific customer complaint? Has it got local references? Has it got some kind of social proof in there as a clear step to take next? People aren't dumb. They're going to know how to find you. They're on your website after all. But having an easy way for them to do that does help smooth that out a little bit. So you can use, if you're really not sure about the conversational ability and making sure your readability and tone's not right, Hemingway and Grammarly are very good AI tools that can help you do that. But even ChatGPT will do this. You don't need another system. Just ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, Claude, any of those, they will do that for you as well. So quick things you can do today to really get started. Update your Google business profile and rewrite everything in conversational language and add an FAQ section. That's part of where you can actually ask questions and post answers to it in your Google business profile. Create 3 best fit brief posts or pages on your website that target the most common customer scenarios you're going to come across. So whether it's the plumber who's doing the toilet fittings, who's doing the renovations, who's doing the fixing burst pipes kind of thing, create a page for those specific things, not just a page full of your services, and then ask for reviews. We're talking about recent details reviews are really good for your business because they don't just tell people that you're good, they tell AI that you're great as well. So there's a double advantage there. So asking people reviews is not rude, is not awkward. We're always getting asked for it. Like every time I go shopping at Kmart now, I get a bloody email saying, how did we do? How did we do? They're always looking for reviews and feedback. So yeah, it's fine for you to ask for that too. Build the comparison table, do an honest assessment of you and your competitors. You don't have to mention them by name, and put that on your website too. And make sure you're part of those local online communities. They can see what people are saying on Reddit and Facebook and local forums and Whirlpool and that kind of thing, because that's a helpful guide for you to not only see how you're doing, but the chances are you're not on there yet, but to see how people are talking about others. So you can sort of pick up where those problems are, what the kind of things that people have expectations around when it comes to those services that you're providing. So your action plan, week 1, define your ideal customer profile. Audit the current content readability to make sure that people are actually able to read and understand and interpret and comprehend what it is your website says. On weeks 2 to 3, write out your best fit briefs, create the comparison table, put it on your website. Number 4, week 4, look at those service location posts or pages for the top 5 areas that you serve. So you tell people straight out, I do this in this location, and make sure it's got plenty of local references, like a local landing page just for that area for the service you provide, as long as you are actually servicing that area. And then ongoing, build a presence, gather reviews, engage in forums, and publish this stuff consistently. If something is said about you somewhere, bring it into your website as well. AI SEO is not just about coming up first on the top of the Google search. It's about being really helpful and conversational to help you get towards the top. The beautiful thing is almost nobody's doing any of this stuff yet because they don't really understand it. They didn't even understand SEO to begin with. So this is your advantage now. Is if you've always fallen behind and had a lot of trouble moving up those rankings, this is where you could make a difference. And this is where I've made a difference, for example, because of the very specific nature of what's on my websites. I'm able to get results out of AI search that I just could not get out of regular Google search results. And it's made a massive difference in terms of the amount of inquiries I've had that have turned into bookings, that have turned into real revenue for the business. I've almost doubled my revenue this year simply because I really leaned into this idea of AI for SEO. So you can do that too. If you'd like to know more about it, if you'd like to book a call with me, you can do all that. Just I'll have all my details on the follow-up email that'll come out. That'll also have a link to this guide. So not just these slides, because slides are slides, an interactive guide version of this that gives you all that action plan and exactly everything we talked about.